my first song ever was called Unfaith. And that song ended up being the song that Drake sampled.
Your first song?
My first song.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was the biggest confidence boost I think anybody could possibly receive.
Shit's about to go down. I'm feeling something in my spirit.
Chats and Tatts with Aaron, Della, Vedova.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Chats and Tatts with me, your host, Aaron Della Vedova. I have got a good friend of mine. I've tattooed this man. I actually did both his hands. You'll be able to check that out in a second. But I got to know him during that process. Got to know his music. His name is Nathan Shaw. He goes by Ekali in the EDM world. He's a music producer. He's a DJ. EDM trap style stuff. He's worked with Drake. He's worked with Skrillix. He's worked with Zoo and Wafia. I mean, this guy's got a very prolific career and a very cool life story. And his road from being a kid to making it to the top of the food chain in this genre of music and art is a fascinating one. So without further ado, please welcome my guest today, Ekali.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming, dude.
My pleasure.
Because you're in town, right? You're in San Diego.
I am. I was playing a couple shows last night.
Yeah.
So I figured we'd just drop in and chill for a bit.
Did you say you played at the Shell?
I played at the Shell last night, yeah.
I didn't know they did stuff like that there.
They don't usually.
Okay.
The show that I was playing was supposed to be at the Petco Park at the
Which
end.
is normally where they do those types.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think that the venue just fell through. And on short notice, the Shell was willing to let the promoters do a show there for the rave last night. And I got to tell you, that was one of the coolest venues I've ever played at.
Just going to ask you that.
It was crazy.
I've been there once for like a Christmas musical thing, but it's gnarly.
The best way I can describe it is like, it's like an Apple venue. It's like everything it looks like it was made by Apple. it's all white and shiny, but the structure itself is massive.
And the acoustics of it, right?
The acoustics are insane.
No joke.
Absolutely insane. I mean, acoustics are obviously less relevant if you're not doing like an orchestral performance,
right,
which is what usually happens at the Shell.
Right.
But yeah, it was unreal.
That's cool, man. That's cool. You got to do that. Maybe one of the first people to be able to do a show like that at the Shell.
I think maybe.
I kind of wish I feel like a bit of a dumbass. I wish I had known it. Well, I couldn't have come last night. Actually, the more I think about it, I got you today. I don't operate on no sleep like you. I haven't mastered that art like you DJs have. But.
Yeah, it's sort of something that you have to get used to when you're touring all the time.
I'll bet, dude. Well, before we get into your life as an artist, your life as a touring musician, one of the things I love talking about is, there's just in this world, it seems like very few people live their dream, and I know from knowing you, this has been a dream of yours since you were a small kid. And I'd like to hear a bit about that, like where it begins, where your love of music begins up in Canada, Vancouver, where you're from. And, some of the trials and tribulations you had to kind of pass through to kind of break into the scene and find your breaks in the industry and things like that. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, my love for music came from my parents, and it came from a very special teacher I had in elementary school, who was the first person who I saw as an authoritarian figure in my life. Her name was Miss Tomlinson, and she was one of the most gentle and sweet people I'd ever met in my life. And she was so skilled at music, and she believed in me hard. And one day she came to school and had a violin with her, and she just gave it to me. So at this point, I'm in grade 3, and I'm learning violin now because, so graciously this woman gave me this beautiful instrument that I couldn't afford, and that changed my life forever.
Okay, we'll get more beyond that, but that right there is kind of the part of the story I always want to hear. I have a similar one. I've told it before on the show, but someone I admired, someone who I felt was a talented artist, told me one day that I was a talented artist. And that's all it took.
That's all it takes, man.
It just clicked, right? That was my identity from that day on. I think I was in first grade. And it sounds like the same for you. You looked up to her. She was a talented musician. She told you that you had that raw talent. You had something special.
She did. And my dad was playing in bands when he was younger as well. My mom is an incredible musician. So I've always been around the music. Mm-hmm. And it kind of just laid a nest inside me, and that's it. Like there was nothing else for me except for music.
That's cool, man. But that's like the starting point, right? You identify as a musician.
Yeah.
You're like, that's what I am. You're looking
Yeah.
at this big bad world. Everybody has to become something. You're like, well, I guess I'm the musician. But there's a little journey ahead of you. You don't just get to do that for a living, do you?
No, you don't. No, you don't. And moving forward into high school and beyond, I sort of didn't fit in. I wasn't performing well in school. My mind was preoccupied with other things. I was kind of a nightmare student, and it just wasn't working for me. And I just dropped out of school, and I started looking for bands to play in. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to do this no matter what. Doesn't matter what it takes. And after that point, it just kind of became autonomous. Like I just couldn't stop. I couldn't stop creating. I couldn't stop playing bass. I was playing bass at the time. And I spent about 6 years touring in that one band called Said the Whale.
And they're still around today. I think?
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. I still speak with the members. We're still friends.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. But I remember I reached a point where I wasn't feeling creatively satisfied anymore because I was only writing bass riffs, and I had ideas for songs in my head that I wanted to get out, and I didn't really have the canvas to do that. So I tried singing and songwriting. Unfortunately, I wasn't born with a very good singing voice, so that didn't last very long. But this was right around the time that I started listening to electronic music. So
Okay. And what now? Let me go back with like what year are we at here?
this would have been early 2000s.
So EDM is, and I don't know, because in those years I was in another planet. I didn't know anything about EDM, but it's new in America, right? Especially in America, this EDM movement at that time.
It's been around for the rave scene has been around for quite some time.
Okay.
And there are, these genres of music like techno, which originated in Detroit. And that culture, that rave culture has existed for decades, but there is a very recent, massive rise in the popularity of electronic music and festivals and raving.
And that massive upward tick starts in the early 2000s, right? Because before that, isn't it kind of more underground, kind of scene? And now all of a sudden it's like bigger venues and it's, DJs are flying around the world. That's when it starts. So you get in at the kind of right at the right time.
Exactly. I was maybe a little bit late, but,
okay.
But better late than never, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So then you leave the band, you start making your own music.
Yeah.
Okay. How does that go for you? I mean, you don't just get a contractor out of the gates.
No, I mean, I wasn't focused on succeeding at the time.
You just want to make your
I was
stuff.
just focused on learning and creating.
Mhm.
This was my first time opening this software and learning all of its intricacies. And I just put my head down and I just made the best music that I possibly could. I was recording things on my iPhone and importing them into the software and reversing them and just experimenting. And that's how I, first released my first song ever was called Unfaith. And that song ended up being the song that Drake sampled.
Your first song.
My first song.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was the biggest confidence boost I think anybody could possibly receive. I remember getting that email. And, it was their clearance lawyer basically just saying, hey, we've used the sample of yours in our music. Here's what it sounds like. And then we negotiated, a split percentage on the song. But man, I couldn't even believe it. I was hearing, Drake's voice and Party Next Door's voice on my music. And I was just a young aspiring musician at the time.
That was your big break
Yeah.
in a way, right? Was that the big break moment?
It was the first big break moment for sure. I mean, it didn't really move the compass for me in the electronic world very much, but it did help me move forward and have the confidence to continue to make the best music that I could. And that in the end was what ended up, elevating me to that next level. It all started with the Drake thing though, for sure.
Okay. And is it fair to say, because, I know I'm thinking of rap music from when I was young and it didn't have EDM vibe to it. And nowadays I feel like all these guys, it's like those two genres have joined together almost. Was that kind of experimental of him at the time, or were other people already doing it?
I think it was pretty experimental of Drake. I think it was actually Party Next Door. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Party Next Door.
Mm-hmm.
He was signed to Drake's label. and he's a singer, vocalist, producer, songwriter. And he was the one who was scouring SoundCloud and came across my song and, downloaded it and then imported it and made a beat over top of it. Right.
That was my next question. How'd they find your song? But this guy was just scouring sound, looking for new sounds, something that might work with his music. And they found yours and liked it.
Exactly.
That's cool. So this is your break. And then what happens? You start what? What happens next?
I just continue to make music. I am searching for a label at this point. I'm trying to, actively find a manager because I don't have a team at this point. The first member of my team that I hired was my agent in Europe. And I started doing tours in Europe before I even toured the US or Canada. I think I had done 4 or 5 full European tours when I was 22 or 23, and I didn't have anybody on my team. So I don't have a tour manager. I've got all my train tickets like stapled into a book, and I'm just alone in Europe traveling around.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was overwhelming, but it was really, really cool. And it was my first experience with international travel, and I was doing what I loved. So it was the first moment where I really could tangibly touch, the fruits of my labor.
Right, dude. And the tour, that kind of makes me think a little bit about, maybe I'm backing up here, but back when you were still in that original, what's the name of the band you were with originally?
Said the Whale.
Yes. And you guys are touring before they were anything or anybody, around in a vans. Tell us about that. I love those stories of when people, are just sleeping in vans and touring around. That was mostly in Canada at the time.
Yeah. I mean, we were touring in a 12-passenger van with a trailer, and we would sleep either in one hotel room between the 7 of us, or we would,
which is probably a luxury.
That was definitely a luxury.
Shower.
It's great. Yeah. I mean, there were other times where we would, go to an after party and then sleep on their couches, on their floors. It was.
How many years did you do that for?
Oh man, 5 years.
So
things got better towards the end, like we were making a little bit more money to the point where we could maybe get 2 hotel rooms, but it was still the cramped van. It was still constantly driving, constantly unloading, reloading, and being in a band is a lot of work, man.
That's a lot of, I don't know. I just like that part of the story because it just kind of lends itself towards what you had said earlier, which was, I'm going to do this no matter what.
Yep.
And no matter what does that mean? Well, it means that.
Yeah, totally.
and you stayed true. You kept going.
I did.
A lot of people quit. They would just be like, this sucks. I'm not making any money. It's been 5 years. I don't have any substantial money. I'm still sleeping in this van. I'm they would just quit.
Man, it was the worst that it ever got. We were staying in Sacramento at a friend's house, and overnight our trailer got broken into. And they stole not only all of our instruments, right? So all of our guitars are gone. All of our drums are gone. They stole our luggage.
No clothes.
So they stole everything. And we have a show the next day in I think it was Austin, Texas for South by Southwest, right? And so we're like, what are we going to do? We don't have any money. We don't have any instruments. We have literally nothing. And this was the first tattoo I ever got here. And this is supposed to be a lemon on my hand. Because we were trying to make lemonade out of lemons. We went to some ghetto tattoo parlor in Austin and got these ghetto lemons.
I like, though, that you've got no clothing, no money, no instruments, but you still made time to get a tattoo.
Absolutely.
Priorities, man.
Priorities.
Well, that lends itself towards this other part of the story where you're touring alone in Europe, no tour manager, like you said, train tickets stapled to a book, trying to figure out. I mean, I've traveled in Europe. It's not easy. Nope. You don't know what you're doing and you don't speak all the different languages and you're doing it all by yourself. But at the same time, you're pretty hard into this by now. It's not such a stretch for you. You've already been on the road with this band in Canada. You know what it means to suffer and to not have money and not know where you're going tomorrow and all those things. So it prepared you.
It did actually. I think that my experience in Said the Whale and touring in bands was the most invaluable experience I could have possibly had, moving into electronic music and starting to tour as an electronic musician. Because all of my peers, when they start to see success, this is their first time ever on the road.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And with that comes a lot of responsibility too, responsibility to take care of yourself is a big one that that a lot of people don't understand when they get into touring. It's not a race, and it's so easy to become lenient on substances when you're touring, because they're available everywhere that you go.
Right.
Right. You show up, the promoter's like, hey man, you need anything? And we all know exactly what that means, right? It's alcohol or drugs. And in the EDM scene, it's just everywhere. So it's really, I think, important for touring artists to really be honest with themselves and to not start using alcohol and drugs as a crutch to perform. Because I'd started doing that for a while myself. And, you know, it started out just having a drink before the set. And then suddenly you try performing sober and you feel anxious. Suddenly you need that drink to perform. And that's one of the dangers of being a touring artist, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's not a new story, right?
No, absolutely not.
That's interesting. So how deep down that hole did you get before you drew the line?
I've been in rehab.
Okay. So you went down pretty deep.
I did.
Okay. Yeah. What was the catalyst? Tell me that story. What was there a moment where we all just broke down and you were like, okay, this isn't working anymore?
Yeah, it was sort of, it was like boiling frogs, man. I didn't even realize that I was in trouble until I was really deep into it. And I think that I've always had some sort of addiction problem with substances, right? It runs in my family. But I didn't realize that I had gotten out of control because there were so many other things going on in my life that required immediate attention that my substance use took a backseat. And I didn't fully look it in the eye and you know, confront it. I just kind of pretended like everything was okay when it really wasn't.
Well, what was the breaking point? Was there a specific event? Or was it just a gradual thing that you just sort of decided no more of this?
It was a gradual thing. And I decided, you know, I put my foot down and said, this is it.
Well, it's also like, I guess, you know, when you're in an environment like you are on tour, what you're doing, the drinking and the drugs, it can look a lot more normal because everyone else is doing it around you. You know, if you were the manager of a you know, a bank or something, it would be blatantly obvious and weird that you're doing drugs and alcohol every day when you go to work.
For sure. Yeah. But if you're at a nightclub, everybody thinks that it's normal.
There you go. And everybody's standing out around you and half the fucking management and everybody's doing it. So probably it'd be easy to just be like, yeah, I'm not on, this is normal. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah. I mean, the job of being a touring DJ is extremely tumultuous. You know, you go to the club and it's all rainbows and butterflies. Everybody's happy and dancing and raving. And then when you're done, you go back to your hotel room and it's silent and all you've got is the ringing in your ears, right? And the next day you're looking at a 12-hour travel day and it's lonely. It's depressing. It's not always fun.
Well, yeah, because you don't travel with a band. You're not in a band.
No.
You're a solo artist. That's another component I never considered. You know, the band can be bad and good. I mean, on one hand, the bands can fight with each other and stuff, but on the other hand, they've got a little small support group where they've got a little team of people where they're all in it together. Yeah. And one guy can say to the other guy, hey man, let me help you, or at least someone to talk to after the show and bounce ideas off of. Wow, that was cool tonight, right? You just go back and you're just alone.
Yeah.
That's different. I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. The hotel rooms start to feel like a prison sometimes. It's like all the walls start to look the same. Makes you feel like you're going crazy.
I could see that. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, what do you do? I mean, so you definitely made this decision. Like, look, I've got to make this sustainable. And what I'm doing right now isn't going to be long-term sustainable. So I've got to cut back on this. Are you like dead sober, or you just manage yourself in a new way? You have rules. What is your new protocol for going on tour at this level and being healthy and taking care of yourself?
Oh, that's a tough question, man. I mean, it's a work in progress, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm perfect and that I'm able to even abstain consistently. Like I'm not able to just go cold turkey, right? I still think that.
While you're thinking, the reason I kind of asked this question is because I think there's just a ton of people, you know, in this realm. I feel like the stories you get are either the guy that's fully in it, full crazy mode, and that's a great story, and I'll tell you all about it. Or there's a guy that's like the train has crashed and they're dead sober. It's the people that are in between those two and make it work. I find interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think the main driving force behind me wanting to make it work for me in my life is my fiance. I have such a beautiful relationship with her. And a lot of the problems that I had started to become noticeable the more time I spent with her and the further in love I got with her, because suddenly the problems that I have are affecting somebody else. Right? And that's difficult for her. So seeing how that hurts her is the main motivator for me to take care of myself and make sure that, you know, I'm nurturing our relationship and also nurturing myself and taking care of my own health.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. And that's oftentimes what it takes. You can't do it for yourself, but you can do it for the ones you love.
Yeah.
And ultimately, in an indirect way, it's for yourself too.
This is true.
You know, that's cool. So yeah, the love of your fiance motivate. You know, you hear that? That's sweet.
She's awesome.
I was just gonna say she must be awesome.
Yeah, she's very cool
to motivate you to kind of look at yourself and maybe those are hard things to look at. To admit to, you know. But at the same time, you know, I just think of like the DJ life, right? I don't know if it's as glamorous as I picture it in my head, but I mean, I've been to these raves, I've been to these festivals, and I'm looking at these guys on stage and I'm like, wow, this is as rock star of a lifestyle as it gets. I mean, you've got VIP access to everything. When the show's over, there's no party that you can't walk into and everyone wants you there. There's no limit to drugs and alcohol. There's no limit to women. There's no limit to anything. You've got this free access card to what a lot of people who don't live that lifestyle would kill for. So that has got to be, you've got to find some rules and I'm sure you don't go to every after party. You can't go to all of them.
Absolutely not.
You know, you got to think about it like, okay, I've had 7 days of tour. I've got a week off. This is a party where some of my best friends are going to be at. I'll go to that one and have a little fun tonight. Is that kind of how you do it?
Well, it's more so, I haven't actually been to an after party that I haven't played at in, I think, years now. So what I do is a lot of my best friends live in California or, you know, in Texas. And whenever I play an after party, I'll use that as an excuse to get my fix of hanging out with my friends and partying with my friends. So I'll invite all my friends to this one show.
Right. That's you get both. You're working, but you still get to see them all.
Exactly. Yeah. And it makes the night a really positive experience for me. Playing in clubs where I'm alone and I don't know the promoters, I don't know the people who are around me. I tend to get really anxious. I tend to get really socially anxious. I've always been an anxious person. So you're right. It's killing two birds in one stone. I get to hang out with my friends and they're also making my job easier and they're making me perform better.
Yeah. You got some people in the crowd that, you know, care about you and love you.
Oh yeah. I have the best friends in the world. So it's a good feeling having them right next to you.
That's interesting. You mentioned social anxiety. I think everybody suffers from that to some degree. I myself, but does it go away when you're performing? Is that your safe zone? Like once you get the headphones and you get up there, it's like, I'm in my world. I'm good. It's when you walk off stage and there's the hundreds of people. Or is it all the time or before you go on? Like when does it hit you the hardest? That's
right before and right after I play.
But not while you're playing.
No, while I'm playing, as long as the vibe is right and the crowd is good, I completely forget that the world even exists when I'm playing. You're right. It's like my protected safe zone.
Interesting.
Where nobody can touch me.
That's cool. Well, what about, you know, what are your plans? I mean, you've made it to this level in the EDM world. You're doing great. Oh, that's one thing I want to ask you about. I know in 2020 you released A World Away, your first how do you say solo?
Yeah, correct. Solo album. Yeah.
But that was kind of in the thick of we were in the thick of COVID, right?
It was just before COVID hit.
Just before it hit.
Yeah.
January of 2020, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let me get into this a little bit. So bummer, kind of.
Huge bummer.
Okay, right. Because you can't tour.
Well, I was in the middle of my headline tour.
Oh, so it just got canceled.
Yeah, the second half of it got canceled.
So you got half of it in.
Exactly. I mean, I got lucky. I got extremely lucky because when you're doing a bus tour off of an album, you have to put up massive amounts of money up front for the bus, for the personnel, for the production, for the bus driver, his hotels every night. There's literally multiple six figures of budgeting that needs to be done. And there were a lot of artists who were touring in spring that year and everybody's tours got canceled, right? And all of these artists had already put up this money for their tours.
All right.
Luckily, I got to play the majority of the shows on my tour.
Which basically you came out of that relatively unscathed financially.
Exactly. And I also, played the best shows of my life on that tour. So I feel very grateful that I got to play the shows that I did before COVID hit.
Wow. So, okay, I didn't know where. That's why I asked, because I didn't know where you landed. I just know that I've talked to other musician friends in that zone that put out albums, and I've heard some horror stories of how bad that went for them.
Yeah,
that was a huge kick to the face for musicians.
it was.
For a lot of people, I don't want to, but musicians. I mean, that's the thing nowadays. I mean, touring. I don't know if I'm right about this, but I feel like isn't that where the money's made? Touring and doing shows. It's not like it used to be. Led Zeppelin makes an album and they make millions of dollars as this album sells around the world. It's changed, right?
I mean, it depends on the artist. I think that every artist has a different primary source of income. For me, you're right, it's touring.
Mm-hmm.
Streaming for me doesn't pay that well, right? And streaming in general doesn't pay very well for artists. It's about $3,000 to $5,000 US per million streams on Spotify. So it's not very good. But then you get other artists who are streaming extremely well on Spotify, and they're signing big, 3 record deals with major labels, and they might be the artist who is, doesn't have to tour, and they can, just focus on making music and stay home. But for the majority of us, we have to tour.
Yeah.
It's the only way to monetize our careers in a way that allows us to live comfortably, not even comfortably sometimes, just to scrape by, right?
Right.
And in electronic music, that's usually the case because electronic music doesn't stream like pop music does, and it doesn't stream like rock music does.
Well, and on that note, like how much do you work a year? I mean, what did you used to, and what do you now? Like, what's it take? Are you just out there, man, all year, or do you take chunks off, or what's it like?
At my peak, I was playing, I think, close to 150 shows a year. So it was very, very busy. And coming out of COVID, my first tour back, I think I played about 30 dates on the tour, and that was over the course of 2 months. So it was very
show
busy.
Every other day.
But I got burnt out real quick. The past few years, I'm getting older, and I'm finding that I want to spend more time at home now. And luckily, I'm able to have that luxury. I can afford to just play a show here and there, and then spend more time at home with my loved ones and making music. But I sort of don't have the same love and commitment that I used to relentlessly touring and playing shows every single day in every different small city in the States, right? It's grueling.
Well, and you want to have a wife, I don't know, maybe a family. You're not good. That's not sustainable. If you want to grow a relationship and a family and these things, your dad can't be, or husband can't be gone over half the year. Also,
imagine being a partner to somebody who's on tour all the time. That's difficult.
Yeah. Oh, I'll bet. I leave my wife for 3 days and it's like, she's not doing well when I get home. Like, where have you been? I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
And the environment you're in, it's just like, I don't know. I'm sure she trusts you, but I know most women would be like, wow, my husband is traveling around the world surrounded by drugs, alcohol, and women. That's got to be stressful a little bit, even if they feel completely comfortable and trusting of you. That kind of probably eats at them a little. It would eat on anybody. It would eat at me. Let's flip the script. If my wife was a singer and we've been together 23 years, if she went on a tour, there'd be a part of me that'd be like, shit, she's surrounded by a bunch of guys, money and power. And I'm here at home just waiting for her to get back. That's hard on a relationship.
It is very, very hard on a relationship. Yeah. It takes a strong couple to be able to make the touring life work within the context of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. Well, just kudos to the two of you. How long you been with, you said fiance, but I thought you're not married yet.
We're not married yet. No.
You got a date set or anything like that?
No, that's up to her. I let her decide when we're getting married, but hopefully soon, man. I really want to just get it done with and marry her because life's too short.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on all that.
Thank you.
This is another one I just want to bring up because when I have artists on, because it's been on my mind.
Yeah.
AI. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how deep you've gone down the rabbit hole, but for instance, I think it was Joe Rogan that some podcast. I think it was Joe's show where he played a new Jimi Hendrix song that an AI had made. They just gave the AI a bunch of Jimi Hendrix albums and it spit out this song. I've heard it. It's like a good song. It sounds just like Jimi Hendrix. And I'll go down, my world, the tattooers are now doing this. You can enter inputs and then it spits out this really cool piece of art. And then you could take that art and manipulate it and put it and tattoo it. I had Crayola Simpkins on the show, a painter. And similarly, I go to this AI program I now know of. I could put in 100 paintings of Crayola Simpkins' work. It would spit out a new painting that looks almost indistinguishable from anything that he's done, but it's not something he's done. He doesn't own it. I could have it printed on a piece of canvas and put on my wall in my house. So we're artists and there's this creative tech coming, AI.
Yeah.
Have you given that much thought?
I have.
Okay. I want to hear what you come up with.
Well, it's interesting because we've only just touched the surface of what AI is capable of.
Exactly.
Right. And we're starting to see now in visual art, there's this program called Midjourney, for example. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have.
There are Instagram accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers, and there are artists who just do AI art.
Yep.
Right. And that's it. And to me, that's a little bit scary because it's sort of eroding the integrity of the art.
Yeah.
And that's also going to be happening in music.
Mm-hmm.
It already has, but it's going to start to happen at a greater and greater rate. And there's like a lot of beauty to it. I think that it can streamline your productivity if you use it correctly. I don't think that there will ever be a replacement for human art, but I do think that it's going to make living and prospering off of your art even more difficult than it already is for people who are just beginning, people who are trying to get into the field.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And let me ask you this then. I mean, do you know of anybody out there that's actively making music, co-opting with AI in the production of that music and not hiding it? I mean, there's probably people that are doing it that haven't even told the world. They're just like, check out my new shit. Meanwhile, who knows how they got to that point, right? Behind the scenes. Is there anybody out there that's just flat out being like, no, this, because there are, like you said, there are artists, visual artists that aren't hiding it at all. They're like, no, this is my art. And it's all, they do something in there. They probably have the AI create this image and then they manipulate it slightly and then boom, that's their art. But they're not even hiding it. And they're hugely popular. And no one's, my artists here, tattooers are like, oh my God. A lot of them, they think the idea is when people find out that you co-opted with AI to produce that, they're going to fucking hate it. And I'm like, people don't seem to care at all. Yeah. They just, if they like looking at it, they like it. Yeah. Same with music. If they like the way it sounds, you think they're going to give a shit how it got to that point? Yeah. I mean, do you know of anyone that's doing that?
I don't. No, I don't. I
can't believe there's no way. There's got to be people doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would have to get hands-on with the music AI programs myself just to see what they're capable of. Because, and especially in electronic music, you got to make stuff sound cool, Right. And I'm curious to see how capable the AI is of creating like actually cool sounds.
But what you could do, imagine this. So you could take perhaps 40 different beats and sounds that you like, put it in there and just keep hitting go and it spits out something and it spits out something. And then every once in a while you're like, well, that's novel. Look what it did there. And then you pull that out.
100%.
And then you slowly, so it's like an assistant. Like a creative assistant.
Yeah, I mean, you have my attention. You really do. I mean, I would be so interested in trying it. I think I might go home and dig into that a bit more.
See, that's kind of what I was wondering if you would go there and say that.
For sure, man. For sure.
I give you credit then because I think there's a lot of artists who feel that way, but they're just like, I'm never going to fucking tell anyone that, because they're too afraid of the lashback from the community, I
mean, look, I think that in order to be an integral artist, you have to learn the skill set. However, I don't think that once you've learned the skill set that you have to commit to doing everything manually constantly. I think that's a waste of time. I think that's stupid.
Yeah. Well, especially you in the digital music. This is more, it'd be one thing if you were an acoustic songwriter, singer.
Exactly.
It would be more kind of like, what? That's so fucking weird. Like the Jimi Hendrix thing. That's why that blew my mind so much. Yeah. I mean, Jimmy's as grungy and dirty as it gets, and he's raw, and he's sweaty, and it's Jimi Hendrix. And this thing sounded pretty damn good. It was like a new Jimi Hendrix song. But EDM and these things, they're digital of nature already.
They are, yeah.
You know, and I would agree with you. I would say there is an opportunity for someone who already has the talent. You already know music from the ground up, from a childhood. You played the violin till what you do now. You're a music producer, you're a music writer. If you could bring in this powerful technical, assistant, what could the two of you do together? Maybe it elevates music to even a greater, higher realms.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm totally open to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. We have a bodysuit show we're going to do this year. I'll just say this on the show right now. I think I'm going to do one bodysuit painting. It's going to be me, like I've always done in the past, and I'm going to do one where I'm going to use AI as a creative assistant.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm just going to put ideas like whatever. I want to do this Buddha with some weird angel wings or whatever the thing is, and it's going to spit out a bunch of samples, and I'm going to manipulate them and use them, and in the end, it'll be a fusion. And I know it's going to piss off a bunch of people, but that's kind of why I want to do it. I like pushing buttons anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm also partly like you. I'm very accepting of futuristic ideas. I've always even in my own career, these new rotary machines come out. I was the first one to buy one. I'm not the first, but I was right in there. Then the iPads came out. Man, when we first got iPad, I draw everything on an iPad now. And there wasn't a single tattooer at my shop when I brought it in. They were like, "What? You're going to draw?" Oh, dude. They were just looking at me like, "Are you fucking kidding me, man? You're a tattooer. You're drawing on a fucking iPad." There isn't a single person in both my shops that doesn't draw on their iPad.
No, of course.
It's efficient, productive. You still have to draw.
You do.
But I just think that this AI thing we were talking about now, it's kind of like, it's just the next step in this progression of tech.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. My fiance is also a tattoo apprentice, and
oh really?
Yeah, and she's constantly drawing on the iPad next to me, and it's not easy.
That's cool. She's an apprentice.
Yeah.
Well, once she gets some legs under her, we'll have to, maybe she'd come down and work with us someday.
That would be fucking awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be so cool.
I'd be happy to. Or if she needs any assistance or help, you let me know.
I will.
Be happy to help. Well, this is all great. Let's go to the future. Is it just keep doing what Nathan does, or is it, no, dude, I've got this dream. I'm working towards it. Is there anything? What's the future looking like on a professional level?
I think my aspirations go beyond the Ekali project. I've been working on an album with a friend of mine for a different project entirely. So that to me is my favorite music that I've ever made in my life.
This new project.
Yeah. And
so it's pronounced project.
Oh, okay. I'm from Canada, bro. We say things differently up there.
That's why I wanted to tease you.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Sorry, what were we talking about?
No, your new project, and you're
project.
More pumped on this than anything you've done so far in your musical career.
I would say so, yeah.
Is it digital in nature, EDM in nature?
It is electronic in nature, yeah, but it's very organic, and it's very earthy, and it's very percussive and dancey. And I think that's one thing that the Ekali project, I kind of put myself in a box, and the type of music that I make isn't necessarily ideal for dance. Which is what these events are all about. Like really heavy trap and dubstep is really fun, and there's a lot of high energy, but there's not as much groove as other genres of music, and that's where
it's kind of like heavy metal. You sort of bounce into
exactly.
it. Exactly.
It's very quantized, right?
Right. I get that.
For me, I come from a background of Latin jazz. I come from a background of being in bands and being a bass player with a drummer and being in the pocket there. Mm-hmm. And there are other genres of music and other, electronic palettes that I'm exploring that are more conducive to my backgrounds as a percussionist and are more, cool. And they sound more alive and danceable. So for me, that's something I'm really excited about.
Very cool. You're evolving.
Yeah.
And you're bringing your roots back into your work.
Exactly.
That's cool. How far out is this? When can we get a little taste?
This year, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
Exciting, dude. I'm stoked to hear it.
Yeah, my friend, he goes by the name Mossy. And I put out some music with him as Ekali, but every time we make music together, it just feels magical. So we decided to do this project together. And he's down in Florida, so I got to go fly down there and finish the album with him. And
very cool.
And then it'll be done.
Oh man, I'm excited. I see what you're up to. That sounds just the way you explained it. I think it's something I'm definitely going to be into. I already love all the music you make. I play it at my house all the time. My kids.
What?
It's finally something I put on that my kids like.
Oh, that's so awesome, man.
No, it is.
That made my day.
I used to, put on old man music and they hate it.
Right.
Y'all put on fucking Elton John or Led Zeppelin. They just don't like it. I mean, I have to accept that. They've had iPhones in their hands since the day they were born.
Yeah.
They're into Drake and they're into the bands you work with. So yeah, we love it.
That's so cool.
No,
that's awesome.
Your stuff is dope, dude. And you do have a style I think it's unique. I don't dive super deep into that genre of music, but I know a few, and I think you have a unique style in the way you produce and the way you create music.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, that's awesome. New stuff coming from Ekali. We're looking forward to that. Now let's talk. We're going to be, it's Chats and Tatts, and we're going to tattoo today.
Yeah,
everybody. We're going to do a new tat. I already did. Show them your hands. Put them up there to the camera.
We got this hand here.
Yeah, one's in black and gray. Yeah, and those are. They're just filigree. They're just decorative filigree. Those were fun, by the way. I was stoked when you let me do those because I love decorative tattooing. And, it's like in tattooing, it feel like there's this, I don't know. When I got into it, everything was a thing. Had to be a subject matter, a ship, a knife, a blah, blah.
Right.
And the idea of just decorating was like, what? Nowadays, it's very common. People they're just decorating the human body without any subject matter at all. And I think it's dope. But even today, I still don't get that opportunity as much. So to do two hands where you're like, no, dude, just make them flowy, filigree, scroll work stuff. I was like, I'm in 100%. Let's do it.
Yes. Yeah. I used to be locked into this mentality that tattoos have to have meaning. And over time, I've appreciated the beauty of tattoos so much that I don't care about the meaning so much about the tattoos anymore. It's more about, the character.
That's such a lively debate in the tattoo world is meaning of tattoos. Does your tattoo have meaning? Isn't it funny how, and I'm sure you've had this happen to you, where a person without a lot of tattoos or no tattoos will look at you and be like, so what's that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And the posturing behind the question is sort of like, if you don't give me an answer that I find, relevant and meaningful, then you're a dumbass.
Yeah.
You have to have meaning or there's no point in getting a tattoo.
Yeah.
But by the way, meaningful tattoos are awesome. I have a bunch of them. I'm sure you do too.
I do too, yeah.
But just decorating the human body is awesome too.
Yeah.
Just decorating it without the meaning,
Totally.
Yeah, that's and in that more metamorphosis that you've gone through where you're like, I just love tattoos so much. They don't always have to mean something.
Yeah.
Is pretty common when people collect long enough. They arrive at that place eventually. Your first tattoo is always meaningful.
Yeah.
Almost always. I mean, your lemon. What was it? What about what happened next for you? You got a lot of tattoos.
I do. This was my next one. Just this guy on my chest here. My mom drew that, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my mom drew one for my sister, one for me, and one for her. So
another meaningful tattoo, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. The ones I got, the earliest, I think, have the most meaning. I actually had a portrait of my sister done here, but I had an allergic reaction to the cream that I used, and it healed terribly.
Oh,
so I had to get it covered up.
That's what the blue, this one here is.
That's her hair on the top there, poking through.
Ah,
yeah,
bummer. Well, we're going to tattoo you today. I believe you had mentioned possibly doing a flower, a chrysanthemum, and I see this little empty spot.
The ditch, the funnest spot on the body to tattoo.
Yeah. Well, you've had the other side done, so you're no stranger.
I know what I'm in for.
Yeah, it's a little sensitivo in there.
Yeah.
It's a little sensitivo. Well, that's cool, man. Well, let's do it.
Cool.
Let's tattoo.
Let's go.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on the other side of the room. We're going to do a chrysanthemum on Ekali, and it's going to be rad.
Let's do it, bro.
Boom.
All right, Nathan, we're about halfway through. How you feeling?
Feeling good. The ditch is a very painful spot, but Aaron's killing it.
Yeah, the outline looks ridiculous.
Yeah, we're about halfway through. Yeah, those lines are so pretty.
everybody, welcome back. We have tatted.
We have tatted.
We did some tatting. It took we took some breaks, but 3 hours.
About 3 hours.
Right there in the ditch.
Yeah, man.
How was that for you, buddy?
I mean, it was probably the most painful tattoo I've ever had done.
For real?
Oh, for sure.
I thought you were fucking with me.
No, for real. I think it might have to do with the fact that I was out at the club last night and I'm feeling a bit tender today. That might be...
It is. Well, it's a painful spot anyway, but...
Yeah, it just exacerbates it when you've,
100%.
Yeah, lack of sleep. But honestly, this is probably my favorite tattoo I've ever had as well. You absolutely killed it, man. It's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often tell people, they're like, what should I do to prepare for my appointment? And I would go, what would you do if you had to run a marathon tomorrow? It's the same protocol.
Yeah.
You go to bed, you get good sleep, you eat well, you drink lots of water. That's the best way to show up for a tattoo. But I mean, a 3-hour tattoo, you can come in a little hungover and get it done.
Yeah.
But if you were here to get a back piece today, I would have been like, bro, you fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, good, man. I'm stoked and honored to have tattooed you again. I'm stoked you love it. I love it. I think it's a sick piece. So thank you for the opportunity to do that.
No, thank you so much for having me, Aaron. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Before we leave, maybe you could let everybody know where can people find you?
I mean, you can find my music on Spotify. You can find it on SoundCloud, on the YouTubes of the world. Basically, all the platforms. It's just Ekali Music is the @ So you can find me, Instagram.
Ekali, everybody.
Correct. Yeah, that's the correct spelling.
Yeah, I've been on there. You're all over that place. Easy to find. Is there any particular parts of the world you'll be showing up more or less lately? Or is there plans? Or are you just kind of popping up here and there?
Yeah, we're doing like the odd festival here and there this year. And we're starting to do more club shows. I'm going to be releasing an EP soon. And shortly after then, I'm going to be doing a tour. So I'll be touring all around the States for that.
Right on. And will that tour be this new project you're working on?
That'll be a completely separate tour.
Completely separate.
Yeah.
But we can expect to see that coming out of you this year.
For
later
sure.
this year.
Yeah, definitely later this year.
Later this year. I'm going to hold you to it.
All right, man.
Well, cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Thank you for the opportunity. Good
you.
hanging out.
Good hanging, bro.
All right. Well, thanks you guys for tuning in. Another episode, and stay tuned for what we do next. If you're digging what's going on over here, please, again, subscribe on YouTube. Give me some love on Apple Music, on Spotify. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you're digging, what you're not digging, and all that jazz. But that's it for today, and we'll see you next time. Take care for now.
See you guys.